Well, my friends, it's hard to believe that 50 years have gone by. Hard to believe, isn't it? It's even harder for me to believe that I was 6 years old 50 years ago. That's hard to believe. Oh, you know, before I tell the story of that first meeting, I want to give you a little background about the years leading up to that year meeting with Baba, of how we came into his orbit. We're all from Durham, North Carolina. I think there are some Durham, North Carolinians here tonight. Share, you are North Carolinian. And all of us were born there. My mother was in theater from early on, in her 20s actually. The whole gamut, acting, directing, producing. And in 1954, though she had gained a reputation actually for her work in regional theater. So in 1954, the Myrtle Beach Playhouse, which at that time was at the old Oast Hotel. You all remember that hotel, some of you who are here? It was here in the 70s. It was torn down in 76, but it was built in the 30s it was a grand old hotel along the Vanderbilt style. I mean, huge and quite beautiful. And stars would fly in from all over the country. Tallulah Bankhead performed there. I mean, there were all these connections to Baba even before we came into the picture. And so in 54, they called Mother and asked her to come to direct that summer. It was a summer stock theater. Said in those days, summer stock was very special, and the stars thought nothing of flying in to perform. So Mother came in 54. Now, by that time, we had built a home in Myrtle Beach. Mother had been coming here since 1947. First time, she had this longing to come to the ocean. And my father said, well, because he preferred the mountains, so he said, well, if you want to go so much, go on, go by yourself. So she came for the first time carrying my brother John in her stomach in 1947. So by 1954, when she came to take that job, we had built a home here. So it was our summer place. Now, there's so many details, and I did try to whittle them down for this evening. Oh, yes. The theater at the Ocean Forest was in the ballroom. The reason I mention that is because Elizabeth's nephew Harry told Mother that Elizabeth asked him to play the piano in the ballroom for Norina more than once, several times, in 1950 and 51. So there's another connection, that Norina was actually in that theater. Okay, so famous 54 summer. This is when Mother met Zezu Pitts. Some of you know who she was. This is for the old timers in the audience. Not many. Oh, there we go. I have one here. Oh, Julia, I'm so happy to see you. I can't believe it. Julia Marvis is here. I haven't seen her in years. We were at the East-West Gathering together, 1962. Oh. Dee Dee's mother, Dee Dee Eaton's mother. I mean, huh? I can't hear. Dee Dee Maverick. Auntie? Dee Dee Maverick. Maverick. Dee Dee, what did I say? Eaton. Oh, sorry. Dee Dee Maverick. Is Dee Dee here? She's here? There's the other Dee Dee, Dee Dee Eaton. Hello, Dee Dee. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Zezu. So she was a very famous film star and a comedian. And she was there. It was the first time that Mother had met her, and they really liked each other. They became good friends. Am I talking too loudly? No. Okay, good. Excuse me. Took some water. Plastic in case I knock it over. Zezu is an important link because she knew about Baba. Her best friends in Hollywood were Mary Pickford and Marie Dressler. And so in 1934, when Baba went to Hollywood, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. had a party, the reception at Pickfair, their home. Well, Zezu was out of town. So when she came back, all she heard was, oh, you missed him. He was so beautiful. Should have seen him. And he didn't talk. You should have seen him. And she never forgot that name, Meher Baba, because that's all they would talk about. So this summer, Baba's name didn't come up, but they did become good friends. And she turned to Jane, my mother, at the end of the summer and said, "Jane, darling, one day you'll produce at this theater, and when you do, I will come and open for you." Now that was quite a promise, because she was very well-known, very famous actress, and for her to promise that, but my mother laughed and said, "That'll never happen." Famous last words. You know how that happens. So. Just to keep from rambling. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward to May of 57. See, I am trying to, I did whittle this down some. May of 57, my mother began to have a very deep spiritual experience. It was really a crisis, and she later recognized it to be what it was, which is spiritual awakening. I would like to share with you a little bit of her account where she talks about that experience. I have to get my glass. 56 years old.
Glasses?
Now, Mother, in 1956, the reason we were not here in 56, you were here, Larry, weren't you? You were here all 3 times. We were not here in 56 because Mother had founded a theater in Pennsylvania and in Bucks County near Lancaster. Another connection, because Larry lived in, the society had a house there for years. So she had a theater there, which is why we were not here in Myrtle Beach in 56. So now it's 57, and this is what she says. She writes, "I was going to New York to sign the stars for the 1950 season in Pennsylvania. It was May. Just the night before departure, a strange experience began. In our country home in Hope Valley, that's Durham, suddenly I called out from the depths of my being, 'Please, God, help me.' Where did that cry come from? How did it come? And why then? It was a desperate cry, a genuine plea for help. Only half conscious, the culmination of years of darkness from a self covered by layers of heavy impressions. I only know that I cried out, 'If there is a God, please hear me.' The next morning, I bought a New Yorker magazine as I boarded the plane. It was Easter time. On the plane, I began the story by J.D. Salinger, Franny and Zoe. You all know this story. As I read, something happened inside me. A light, joyous feeling, akin to bliss, but something seemed to be breaking apart inside. I kept putting the story down, then picking it up again. I felt that I would explode. I read the words Zoe said as he looked out on the matinee audience at the, quote, ladies in the hats. He said to Seymour, "Don't you see? They are all Jesus Christ, each one." And Franny kept repeating the Jesus prayer, "Oh Lord, have mercy on me." The phrase, "It is all God's plan," kept running through my head and my heart. The experience continued in New York. It heightened and took a strange turn. I had no need to eat or sleep. After a few moments of rest, I would be totally refreshed. I felt blissful, yet still able to plan and to work. All exterior things fell into place as though by magic. All around me thought me mad. I would simply say, "It's all God's plan." At the very height of this strange experience, I had a call in New York from Sonny, that's my father's nickname, to say that the producers of the Myrtle Beach Playhouse wanted me to come and take over the theater. That's what you said would happen. They were dropping it. I was shocked. They had only kept me on those 2 years from 54 to 56. They only kept me on those in a minor capacity when the New York director arrived. Now they wanted to give me the entire theater. It was incredible. I responded to Sonny that all my money was tied up in my Pennsylvania theater. Sonny said, "They say all you have to do is come. Everything will be put in your hands. They want the theater to continue." Looking back, I see now how it was all God's plan. It was Baba's natural miracle. I had to be there with my children so that we could meet him. I said, "Yes, I will come." I told my friends in Pennsylvania, they forgave me, and because the theater had been received well, there were other producers eager to take it. So that's from my mother's own account in her book, Letters of Love. Now, during this time, my mother and father had decided to separate. So mother did, when she took the job, she took all three of us and moved here to Myrtle Beach. And we lived in a home on 67th Avenue on the ocean. Now, of course, mother remembered Zezu's promise. So she called her up in Hollywood, and Zezu said, "Of course I'll come." And she came. And they opened up with a show called Solid Gold Cadillac. Now, the reason I mention that is because Elizabeth told mother years later that that Charles Purdam's son, Edmund, played the feature role in that movie, the same movie. So again, all these little tiny connections. Now, after the play opened, Zezu was free in the daytime. And she asked mother, "I'd like to see some of the beautiful homes around in Myrtle Beach." So mother remembered this house in Briarcliff Acres that she had used during a promotion of one of her plays. And so she called the lady, not knowing who she knew the lady's name. She called her and asked if she could bring Miss Pitts. And of course, the lady was Eileen Coates. I don't know how many of you met Eileen. You met, of course you did. Yeah, yes. Eileen had met Baba in 52 and lived in Briarcliff, and then ended up in that lovely little place at the end of the lake, near Del Ruba. Anyway, so she said, "Of course, come." So they came to Eileen's house. It was quite beautiful. They walk in the house, and there's a photograph on the table, and it's a photo of Baba. And Zezu looks at it and says, "That's Meher Baba. I want to see him. I want to see him." It turns out Elizabeth and mother figured out later that she had seen the notice in the paper about Norina passing, and the Meher Center was mentioned in that little obituary. So that's why she knew. She said, "I want to see him," thinking that he might be here. Well, mother hears the name Meher Baba. She doesn't recognize the photo, but she hears the name, and she flashes back. Her father, my grandfather, had a newspaper in Durham. He was the editor of the newspaper for 45 years, and he printed the Associated Press carried that mention of Baba's visit. I don't know if you all knew that, but that was mentioned in the Associated Press that Meher Baba had come here to Myrtle Beach for the first time in 1952. So she's flashing back. Two things come to her mind. She remembers the word spiritual and Myrtle Beach. The other thing is she flashes on a memory where my grandmother was driving by the center one day and turns to my mother, this is my father's mother, and says, "Jane," she's both Southern, "Jane, a great person, I heard that a great person from India came over here." And that was the first time mother heard any comment about Baba. She didn't say Baba's name, but so that came into her mind. Now she overhears Eileen making plans to take Zezu to the theater, to take her here. So wonderful to be able to say here. I've never gotten to do that before. Bring her here. So, so she overhears them making plans, and she says, "I want to come too." Well, Eileen ignored her, didn't even reply. She wasn't really interested in mother. She was interested in the star, Zezu Pitts, of course. So, but the plan was to pick to meet at my mother's theater, here, to meet here, again, here, to meet here. And, but again, mother wasn't invited. That they would meet here because it was the closest point for Zezu to come. And Eileen would come here and pick up pick up Zezu. So the day was set. Mother, said, all right. And so the plan was made that that would happen here. That night, Mother goes home and has a dream, a very vivid dream. And in the dream, she sees a beautiful fence, very high and rounded, with very thin slats, and a little rooftop peeking up over the top. And she hears celestial music. She hears unbelievable sounds. It sounds like celestial music. And she has a feeling that there are people in there. She doesn't see them, but she feels that there are people in there. And she's outside. She feels the joy coming from the house. She's outside and she's alone and alienated. Well, when she woke up, she promptly forgot the dream. So now we come to the day where they're supposed to meet at my mother's theater. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait for Zezu to show up, and she doesn't come. They wait for a long time. But, Elizabeth and Kitty and Margaret were waiting at the gate, and it was June. This is hot. We know how hot it can be. Don't you think it's debatable, that part about equable climate? Yes. I've often thought of that. Wait a minute, wait. Oh. So mother, they're waiting, and Zezu never shows up. So Eileen turns to my mother and says, well, you have to come. Just like that. You have to come. Mother said, no, I'm not coming. Why should I come? I have no interest in this, But Eileen really pushed. So Mother said, all right, now I'm going to stop here and back up to the night before. Some of these facts are new to me because I reread my mother's account and I had gotten several things wrong, which is why I have these two, because I used to tell it a little differently. But it was the night before that Norina's funeral. Norina had passed away, and that's how Zezu had seen that notice. Norina had passed away, and she had always said, Elizabeth, do not mourn for me. I can't do her accent, but Annie Boo tried to do it for me once. Do not mourn for me. Let me go to Baba. So they decided, Elizabeth had received subscription tickets in the mail to come here. And she thought, well, the night of the funeral, they will come here and see a play. They meaning Margaret, Kitty, and Elizabeth. So they arrived late. I'm laughing because that often happened. But they arrived late, and my mother, when they came in the front door, the lights were already down. And my mother was standing at those doors there looking for latecomers, and that was unusual. Mother was the producer of the theater, and she didn't do that normally. But she has no memory of this, but Elizabeth said that my mother said to them, come in, I've been waiting for you. Like that. And the way she said it, Elizabeth felt something familiar in her smile. So it's the next day, the very next day, that Mother comes to the center. And not a word was said to her about Elizabeth they get out of the car, and Elizabeth opens her arms and tells her, we met you, we saw you last night. And Mother had no memory. But not a word about where's the star, we've been waiting an hour, where have you been? Which is, of course, like Elizabeth and Kitty. And that day, Elizabeth took her around the center, and Mother told her about her experience. And Elizabeth, and they drove, as they were driving, they drove up to Baba's house, and there was the fence in the dream, where Mother burst into tears and just sat there in the car sobbing. And of course, Elizabeth didn't say anything, just sat in silence with her. And understood, of course. So that was really the beginning. That was our first, the beginning of everything changing. I heard something. Did I hear something? Did I cough? Oh, I didn't cough. Oh, okay. So, I always tell this story because it's one of my happiest memories, and that's meeting Elizabeth and Kitty for the first time, because that's when, for me, everything really did start to change. Because Mother took me over to Yukon Dunes, the house. For those of you, there may be new people in the audience. I don't see any new faces, but Yukon Dunes was Elizabeth's father's home, and it's where Baba recuperated from the accident in 1952. So it's a very special house and a very beautiful house. And wanted me to meet them. I think Charles and John, my two brothers, had already met them, Kitty and Elizabeth. So we drive up, and the house is really where you would enter. Lots of steps going up. And Elizabeth was standing waiting for us. It was so sweet, and standing at the top of the steps. And she was wearing the most beautiful blue, sort of turquoisey royal blue, which was her best color. And her head was framed with white hair. And she's beaming, waiting at the top of the steps. And I walk up, and you know how when you're little, everything seems extra big. Well, I thought like it was going up to heaven, so many steps. Now, I went by, it's not that many steps, but then it seemed so far. So I get up to the top, and Elizabeth, in her characteristic way, leans over. You know how she would always walk like this, Julia, with a little, because she had had an accident when she was 14 and fell off a horse. That's why Elizabeth had this little off-kilter, little, not a hump exactly, but So she leans over like this, and she says, "Hello, you must be Wendy. You may call me Auntie Boo." And I looked up. I was so happy. What it was, when she was a little girl, she couldn't say Elizabeth. So she called herself Boo. That's how that happened. That came about, and it stuck. So when she grew up and had nephews and nieces, they would call her Aunt Boo, very proper. And when Charles and John and I came along, we called her Auntie Boo. Well, all of a sudden, this incredible ball of energy comes rolling toward the screen door, and this woman stands there, and she said, "Oh, hello. Oh, yes. Oh, you must be Wendy. Oh, yes. I'm Kitty." And I went, "Kitty? Like a kitty cat?" And she went, "Oh." Remember how when Kitty would get really tickled, she would crook her finger. Oh. She said, "Oh, yes, like a kitty cat, like a kitty cat." Well, I tell you, they made me feel, for me, when I look back over that meeting, because it's so vivid in my mind, I realized years later that it was really my first meeting with Baba in a way, in a sense, because of their love for him, their total focus on Baba. And they treated me so special, like I was very special to them from the get-go. And they listened to me. A lot of adults don't listen to children. And they really listened to me and respected my opinions, which weren't that developed at that time, but and they just gave me so much love, and it was so natural. That's my point. It was so natural being with them and wanting to be with them. I wanted to be with them all the time. So I spent a great deal of time with Kitty in particular, because Kitty loved to walk, and we'd walk on the beach. Annie Boo had a dog named Banjo, a little Dachshund. I've never known how to pronounce that. Dachshund. And that dog had been to India, by the way, and spent a year in India. Baba liked Banjo very much. And so Banjo was now back at Yukon Dunes. She was quite old, deaf and blind, but adorable anyway. And Kitty would love to walk him. So I would walk with her, and Kitty walked so fast and that I could barely keep up. I tried to sort of run. And the reason Kitty did is because she was the only one that could almost keep up with Baba. She could walk so fast that she was still a little behind. Nobody could quite keep up with Baba. And we would go into the original kitchen, pack lunches, spend lots of time in the kitchen eating, picnic lunches. And Kitty taught me how to braid her hair. She had the most beautiful long hair, and she taught me how to braid it, which was very exciting. My hair was short. So there were lots of wonderful memories, really very special times. But of course, the most special was Baba. The news came that Baba was coming. Now, Elizabeth, Kitty did everything in those days. She cleaned the cabins. I mean, there are how many people now? 15 people doing this? Kitty did it all. I mean, there was one caretaker, Frank Eaton, but Kitty cleaned the cabins, she made the bed, she did the laundry, you name it, she did it. It was unbelievable. So Kitty went into high gear. You know, oh yes, oh dear, Baba's coming, oh yes. So I naturally caught that enthusiasm and that excitement. I was 6, I was 5, by the way. By this time, 6. When I met them, I was 5. And then by this time, I'm 6 years old, and the word has come that Baba's coming. So all the preparation they had to make began in earnest. So cute watching Kitty scurry around. Do you remember how Kitty would go? Remember, Stella, how she'd pick the moss off the trees? She was convinced they were killing the trees. Oh, and Phyllis, you played that part, didn't you? That role in the play where you're pulling the moss off the trees. So cute. So, yeah. Oh, yes. You know, I only knew that Baba's name meant father, and I knew that he came from India. And I knew that Annie Boo and Kitty loved him very much. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that someone very special was coming. And so one of the things that Mother did and meant so much to me was we went shopping for the perfect dress. And we found the perfect dress. It was, and I told Mimi, I don't know where the dresses got to. Unfortunately, I would love to have had them here tonight. They were purple. Well, I say they because what was so exciting is that it was our first pair of mother and daughter dresses, a big one and a little one for me. And it was purple with little dotted Swiss, little white collar, and pleated. And it was absolutely adorable. And Mother had one too. Also, Mother took me to get my hair cut. And that was very exciting. If you remember when you were a little girl, getting a new haircut or a new hairstyle, well, I got bangs for the first time. And that was very exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. So now, when Baba came, when he arrived on the 17th, as you know, my mother met Baba first on the 19th, and the dress she met Baba in is the one over in the corner there, the black and white one. That was the dress. Looks a little dull, but it was quite pretty then. Pretty old. And then my brother John, the oldest, met Baba on the 20th. All met Baba on the 21st. And then I was the only one who hadn't met Baba yet. I didn't realize until later that we met Baba in order of age. I didn't realize that. But so I was the last one, and Baba told Elizabeth, and Baba signed for Elizabeth, tip of the hat, and driver. Said, Elizabeth, have Wendy at the theater. Tell Jane to have Wendy at the theater 1/2 hour before the film is to begin. Now let me tell you what happened. Kitty had this idea that Baba should see the film from 1956, Visit, that Shami and Deuce had taken, a Sufi film. No one had seen it yet. Baba hadn't seen it yet. So that was the plan. And so she says, Baba, oh yes, you must see the film, Baba. Baba said. Good idea, Kitty. What film? Said, oh yes, Baba. 56 film, you must see it, Said, oh, Baba said, good idea. Baba said, where? Oh, Jane's Theater, perfect place. Oh, Baba said, good idea. And then Baba said, does Jane know? And of course, Jane didn't know. And this was classic Kitty. Kitty always had ideas, stirring, but rarely thought them through all the way. And how it would affect everyone else. Oh, it's so cute. You know, Kitty was so impulsive, just a little aside, that when Baba would spell out something on the board in the early days, she would run to do what she thought he was saying before he finished what he was saying. So Baba, call her back. And then he'd finish and say, Kitty, I wasn't finished. And that was classic Kitty. Oh, okay. So I remember getting dressed and getting my hair, getting my dress on and mother getting hers on. I don't remember actually coming here, but I do remember waiting out in the foyer. Now that foyer out there is the same. This space is almost the same. There was a backstage area, which is not here anymore, but there was like a hallway with rooms off of it, the length of this wall here. Also, this area was a stage, the whole area, not this. This was not here then. It was a theater in the round. So it was all in the middle of where you all are sitting. That's where the stage was. And there were chairs. Stella, we were talking about this. You remember the stairs, don't you? They were like stadium stairs. What am I saying? Stairs? Chairs. I meant chairs. They were stadium chairs on each side. So I remember we did arrive on time, and I was standing we were standing to the right of the door, and looking at it here would be to the left. And as I said earlier, I didn't know what to expect, but I was very excited. But I was also a little nervous because I didn't know. I thought this was a stranger that I was going to meet. So, I've been tearing up since I came in here, and I've been trying to hold it off, but it's so special to be here in this place. Because Baba came in the doors, the big double doors in the front that you came in tonight. And, that's it right there, isn't it? I'm having trouble seeing. Those two doors, yeah. Baba came. No, that can't be it. It's an exit. I know. I see. Okay. The foyer is still beyond that. Thank you. I didn't realize. So Baba comes in the doors all of a sudden, and the dancers are carrying him. And it's 1:30 in the afternoon, so the sun is still shining, and the sun is coming from behind Baba, and his head is lit up like this. I can't see his face at first, but then he comes in further, and it's dark in the foyer. It's quite dark. And Baba gestures to put the chair down like this. And then he stops and he looks at me. And then he looks at my mother. Oh. And I knew he was saying, I like your dresses. He said, I'm very touched by your dresses. Like this. And I couldn't take my eyes off Baba. From the moment from the moment that I could see his face, I was so captured that it was like, it was unbelievable, really, when I think back, because it was so natural. It's like we all feel with Baba, very natural. He was very beautiful, so beautiful, and he was wearing his pink coat. And his eyes were sparkling. Baba was very happy to see me. And the next thing he said, Baba went like this. Baba went. And I knew what he was saying. I said, yes, Baba, I'm very tall. And what had happened was people who knew me knew that I had shot up overnight, that I was very tall for 6 years old. Then Baba opened his arms, and without hesitation, I ran into his arms, and he leaned over and pulled me into this embrace across himself like this. And I tell you, it was heaven, because I was totally immersed in it. I didn't even think. I was just so happy to be in that embrace. And it felt like it went on forever. There was no beginning and there was no end. Time stopped. Absolutely stopped. So of course it did come to an end. All embraces come to an end at some point. But so what he did, Baba, all of a sudden he grabbed my shoulders and he started jerking me back and forth really, really hard. I mean, really so hard that I crack up. I'm starting to crack up. I'm really laughing, and Baba's shaking like this. He's getting all pink in the face. And, I found out later that he did that to all three of us, Charles and John. you see him doing it with Charles in the film, but he also did it to John. So there's something about that. I don't know what it is, but I know one of my favorite expressions of Baba's was, I love animals, but I love children more because in their play, I become their eternal playmate. And that's what this felt like, looking back on it. Baba was just jerking me back and forth. I'm laughing so hard, and then all of a sudden he takes my face in his hands, and he goes, and I said, but Baba, I could talk. But Baba, I couldn't talk at all, of course. It made Baba laugh even more. His face was getting all pink like his coat. It was so amazing, so wonderful. Okay, so then it was time to go in. Now, this was all taking place out there, and it was time to come in here to see the film. Someone to Baba, and we went, time to see the film, time. It was so, it was so natural that Baba wasn't speaking. I never noticed that he wasn't talking because he was so animated and so natural. It was so natural being with him that you never felt that he wasn't talking. I never felt that. So, and also he was using very simple gestures. It's time to see the film. Yes, Baba. So the dancers come and they lift him up. Well, it's the first time I've seen Baba. And all I want is to be with him because he was like a big magnet. I just wanted to be with him any opportunity. So I was, in that moment when the chair went up, I felt this moment of panic. And I was so afraid that I wouldn't get to be with Baba anymore because you know how it is when adults come into how they take over and children get kind of shoved. That often happens, maybe not so much in the Baba community, but in the world. So I was afraid that was going to happen. So I looked up at Baba and I said, Baba, can I stay with you? And Baba's whole face lit up. Baba smiled. Baba said, he's so happy. Baba went like this and pulled my face. And he patted the side of his chair. Said, yes, you stay. So I knew he was saying good. So then we came in here. And Baba, the dancers had come early, by the way, and fixed up the theater. They had brought flowers too, and it was prettier than usual. And let's see, on the stage, I forget exactly how it was set up, but I know that the film was here, and Baba was on the front row, but placed in his chair on the front row. Well, I automatically plopped down at Baba's right foot, and Charles automatically plopped down on Baba's left foot. And all of a sudden, I remembered my mother. Oh, I'd totally forgotten about her. Totally. And if you knew how unusual that was, because she was the center of my life. My mother and father had separated. I don't know if I had said that. In fact, on the way to the theater, Charles may tell this story on Saturday. On the way to the theater, Charles was in the car with Baba and Kitty and Kitty from the back seat leaned forward and said, Baba, what about the children's father? My father's name was Charles. What about Charles? And Baba said, what do you mean, Baba? I mean, what do you mean, Kitty? And then he went like this. He said, Jane and Charles were meant to separate. And that had happened before Baba came into the picture consciously. And so Kitty said, well, Baba, what about the children's father? Don't they need a father? And Baba looked at her, such surprise. He turned around and he said, I am their father, Kitty. I am their father. And, I never worried about that. I mean, I loved my father, but I never missed him that much. Because I did think of Baba as my father. I think all three of us did. Okay, so I was going to say, I turned around because I remembered Mother, and I turned around, and sure enough, Mother was looking like very worried because she thought we're being too forward, and we were, with great verb. And she said she was going like this. And in that moment, Baba turns around and Eric says, leave them be, Jane. They're all right. Leave them be. So we got to sit with Baba the whole time. It was so wonderful. Again, there was no sense of time. Like, I can't tell you how long we sat there or how long this went on for. I know that Baba liked the film. I could see him smiling. Baba liked it. But I was really looking at Baba more than the film. I looked up a little bit, but I was looking at Baba's feet, which were very beautiful. Even as a child, I recognized how beautiful Baba was, in the sense that it was so natural to want to be with him, and how beautiful he was, and that he just looked so beautiful. It's hard to find words, but you know. Well, I don't remember any details like getting from the theater to the center. We did go back to the center, and I don't remember any of those kind of details. I just remember my memories of Baba are very vivid, but only with him, with his form, only when I'm actually with him, or in the room with Baba. So it's like when a lightning flash happens and whatever's in the path is illuminated. That's what my memories are like. And people ask me, I've gotten asked this a lot in my life, how can you remember? You were so young. How can you remember? And I think if ordinary man, I probably wouldn't, maybe I wouldn't remember. I don't know. But because he is the source of love, the very source of love, and we're on a journey of love, that my memories of him don't feel any separate. I don't feel any separation between those experiences and now. So my next memory then is the birthday party. And of course, you all have seen films of the birthday party. And I don't know, I think you all, most of you know this, that the only way an adult could come was if a child brought them. Isn't that wonderful? I love that. Don't you love that? You're not laughing. I love that because you saw these children, these adults running around asking children, can I come with you? Can I come with you? Not that Baba wouldn't have let them come, but I thought it was a very sweet little touch. So now, my mother had heard that in the East it was a custom to garland Baba. So she ordered a garland. She called up Lazelle's flower shop, and was the only flower shop in Myrtle Beach at that time. I got a beautiful bouquet today from Charles and Christopher, my brothers, and it was ordered from Lazelle's on purpose. Isn't that cute? So Mother ordered the garland, and I know some of you have heard this. She calls them up, and she says, and they know her, of course, and, well, Miss Jane, how are you? I said, well, yes, I'd like to have a garland made. And they went, a what? Well, and Mother says, oh, well, a garland. A what? Miss Jane, I don't know what a garland is. What is that? So she said, well, now, and Mother began to explain how you could make it. They really did not, they had never heard of such a thing. So Mother started to describe, you can either do it with wire or thread, and you put the flower, and she's telling them, said, well, Miss Jane, I don't know if we can make a garland, but we'll try. We'll try to do our best. Well, they not only made one, but it was absolutely beautiful, of pink carnations. And so I didn't know this till I reread the account, my mother's account, that there were lots drawn. Larry, did you know this? That the parents drew lots for which children could put the garland on Baba. And I never knew that. I forgot that, and if I did know it. So we won, and a couple of other children did too. But this particular time at the birthday party, so we're waiting for Baba, and Baba's in the lagoon cabin, and the dancers are carrying him in the chair, and they're coming towards the picnic table. And the picnic table is, next to the shelter outside the meeting place. And my memory is that the table was set up this side of the caretaker's cabin. You know, you come out of the meeting place, and straight ahead of you would be the table and the caretaker's cabin behind you. That's my memory. I think other people have a different memory, but anyway, I've learned to stay with my memory. So it was so sweet because Baba comes out, and they put him at the end of the table, and we're holding the garland. It's quite long, and Baba sees the garland. Baba says, "Is that for me?" We said, "Yes, Baba." So he's so sweet. He leaned over so that we could put the garland around his neck, and he grabbed the three of us. All three of us did it, and Baba grabbed the three of us and pulled us up really high like this. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And again, it was the most joyful moment. I mean, and one that seemed to go on and on and on. But of course, it ended. And Baba they brought the cake in. By the way, it was 7 layers. I called and said it was 3 layers, but it was 7. I thought it was 7. And then Phyllis Frederick, this is how, you know how the Mandali have different accounts of the same stories, of the same events? Well, Phyllis Frederick writes in her account that it was a 3-tier cake. And then Kitty writes in her account that it's a 7-tier cake. I thought it was 7 for the planes of consciousness. Anyway, doesn't matter. Whatever it was huge. Huge cake. And big fat candles. Big. The biggest candles I've ever seen. Not the kind on the table big, but, you know, for a birthday candle. Anyway, so Baba makes the first cut. And there's some lemonade here. And Baba serves all the lemonade. Kitty was one of the people that would hand out the lemonade. And you know, there was such joy, such joy. Again, it's like time stopping, you know, and it's like we're in this big bubble, and it's just suspended in air, softly, gently moving like this, but everybody's in the bubble. So I'm trying to find words to describe the setting, because it wasn't really that noisy. There was a lot of laughter, but there was also Baba, this incredible silent man sitting there, but with so much animation and so much happiness. Baba's so happy in our happiness. And Baba's looking at us, he's looking. So what happened with, one thing that happened to me is that a woman was taking photographs, Polaroids, and they were piling up on the table in front of me. And I started looking. By the way, Charles and I, of course, I plopped down on the end of the table closest to Baba. Charles plopped down opposite, closest to Baba. Again, that wanting to be as close as possible. This woman started taking photographs. They're piling up, and she sees me looking at them, and she says, "Would you like to show them to Baba?" I said, "Oh, yes, any excuse to go up." So without thinking, I take the top one, and I run up to Baba. Baba stops everything. Again, the love and when I think about it as an adult, that Baba would pay me that much respect, a child, and I'm 6 years old, and here he is, Baba stops everything. And he has Eric's look, he has Adi look. And then I get a little like this. So I go back and I take the next one off the pile. And I go up again, and again, Baba, oh, Baba. And again, I get a little. I'm so happy. So I go back, I get another one. So you've got the punchline. I don't know how many times I went up, but it must have been about 7 or 8. But each time, Baba would stop. Each time, Baba would stop. And look, and he looked so happy. And again, it made me feel like I was the only person at that party. That's how it was with Baba, wasn't it, Larry? You always felt like you were the only one, the most special one. He made each of us feel that way, and only God can do that. We can't do it. Can we? No. But Baba can do it. He makes each of us feel so special. And each of us are to him. So years later, when I thought about the pictures, because I've seen them, some of those little Polaroids, and they were all of Baba. Baba was admiring himself. Oh. Oh. Baba's humor, so cute. Well, another thing that happened is that people were holding the umbrella, and I wanted so much to hold that umbrella because Baba was letting different people, people were taking turns. It wasn't like one person was holding the umbrella the whole time. So I wanted to hold it, of course. I'm looking at it being passed back and forth. After maybe 5 minutes, Baba would call someone else. And the longing to hold that umbrella was so great that I thought I couldn't stand it if I had to wait, if I couldn't do it. But I didn't ask. But in that very moment when I thought, oh, please, Baba, can I hold the umbrella? Baba clapped. And I said, oh, yes, Baba. And I ran up, and Baba it was Beryl Williams. And that's also an interesting aside. She was a black Baba lover. And that's very interesting because so much of my work in life has been with the black community here in Myrtle Beach. And the very first Happy Clubbers, Baba embraced on that spot at the birthday party. It's hard to believe that, 6 years later, Happy Club would come about, and those two grandchildren of Elizabeth's cook and housekeeper. Anyway, so it was Beryl Williams who gave me the umbrella. So I'm holding the umbrella, and I'm in absolute heaven, very proud, very happy. Then I'm holding the umbrella, and again, for a moment, it felt like time had stopped, but all of a sudden I become conscious of time because it starts to feel heavy. And it's starting to creep down a little bit. So I quickly put my other hand up, and because it wasn't a parasol, it was an umbrella. This was heavy for a 6-year-old. As tall as I was, heavy. So I'm like, and I'm really earnestly trying to, because I don't want to leave. I want to be there holding the umbrella. But eventually, probably within seconds, it started to go down like this. And I was so afraid it was going to hit. I'd keep going like this, and it would keep creeping. So just when it probably would have hit his head, Baba clapped and brings Jean Shaw over and has me give it to Jean. But it was so sweet of Baba to answer that wish. I mean, he knows every hope and wish for all of us. Every moment, Baba knows for each of us what we want. And if it's a good thing, if he wants us to have it, then we have it. So he gave that to me. It was one of my happiest memories was holding the umbrella for Baba. Well, now after the party, Baba had arranged for us to have gondola rides. So we all went down. There were several of them because there were a lot of children. I don't know how many children, actually. I should know, but I don't. But Larry, do you remember going in the gondola? Yeah. There were a number of trips, I think. One thing, I have a memory, and again, I don't know if I made this up, but I have this memory of getting in the gondola and Baba standing on the bridge, waving at us like this. And then he left. I mean, he didn't stay there long, but he did wave at us. And I wonder if it really happened, but, I've learned to trust my memories. Well, I have to stop and tell you this little story because it's another beautiful. I had a dream one night years ago, but long after 58. And in the dream, it's the birthday party again. And everything is exactly the same, down to the last detail. And but in the dream, Baba takes my face in his hand and brings it up very slowly to kiss him, has me kiss him right here on his forehead. It was so powerful and so beautiful, and it was in slow motion, that when I woke up, I was in ecstasy. I mean, I just really was floating. I couldn't believe. I said, oh, that didn't happen. I mean, I would have remembered that. It didn't happen, but it was so real in the dream. I couldn't believe it, that wonderful motion of going up and Baba leaning over so that I could, and he purposely brought my mouth right here on his forehead. Well, a couple of years go by, and Kitty and I are the guests at the Northeast Gathering, and the last day has come, and there's a Dooney fire, and we go to the Dooney fire, and Dee Dee's aunt, Liz Sikowski, I got it right? Or is that Ginny? The other way, Ginny. Sakalis, thank you. I know, you'll have to tell everyone later. Anyway, Liz Sakalis, Dee Dee's auntie, comes running up to me and we hadn't seen each other in years, and we embraced. And she said, "Wendy, you have no idea how many times I've thought of you through the years. You see, because I have this film that I took, a home movie of the 58th birthday party. And in the film, the most beautiful moment is when Baba takes your face in his hands and brings it up to kiss his forehead." I couldn't believe it. So, of course, I burst to trust those experiences, dreams, or Baba, and of course Baba says when you dream of him, it's not a dream, it's a vision. Even though you feel like you're dreaming, it's not, if he's in that dream. So it was so clear and so vivid. So it was a gift that Baba had given me. But I was so happy to know it had actually happened. Anyways. Yeah, you know, yeah, I told you about Baba saying, "I'm your father." I told you that. Yeah. After Baba left on May 30th, and everything was the same, but everything had changed, everything. And on June 30th, we got our first cable from Baba. "And let your three dear little ones love me more and more. Baba." Just sign Baba. And then after that, Baba would address cables and messages to Jane Trio. We became known as the trio, the three of us. I thought a couple of fun facts I thought you might want to know. Charles Purdom, who had been here for the 58 Sahavas, left and went back to England, but came back to direct my mother in Separate Tables, a wonderful play. And that's the cape she was wearing, and that's her picture from that play, Separate Tables. But he asked Baba's permission to come back. Everything was run through Baba in those days, everything, every decision. So Baba wrote to him and said, "Yes, go. That's a good thing. Go and direct Jane in the theater, in Separate Tables." The play too. She played. Now, those of you who knew Kitty, you know that Kitty did not like speaking publicly. She had to read talks. You remember that? She didn't like speaking. You know, it was hard for her. She was nervous. So one night she dropped the tray. She was a waitress. She dropped the tray. She was so nervous the first night, but it was okay. She was all right. After that, it was like, broke the ice, but it was so cute because she didn't perform. She wasn't a performer, but I don't know how Mother got her into to do it at all. Oh. I also want to tell you that Mother had children's plays on Saturday afternoons here, and naturally, all most of the time. And I played Goldilocks in Goldilocks and the Three Bears. What made me so happy to find out later was the story about Baba and the three chairs in the barn. You all know that story? Well, when Baba arrived in 52, they ended the tour, the first tour, at the barn. And there were two chairs in there, and Baba sat down in one, and he said, "It's too hard." Then he sat down in the next one, and Baba said, "It's too soft." And then Baba said, turned to Elizabeth and said, spelled out on the board, "Where's the chair that Norina used to give talks about me in New York? Where's that chair?" Because, of course, he knew it was there. It was in storage. And Elizabeth said, "Oh, Baba, it's in storage." Quickly went and got the chair. I forget who she called, the caretaker or someone, the chair. And it's the yellow chair. So they brought that chair, and then Baba's so happy. Baba beams. He sits down. Baba says, "This is just right." So I was so happy when I heard that story. Another little connection. I want to close with a story of something that happened in 1962. Many of you have heard the story, but I want to tell it again because it connects back with my being a child with Baba. And it happened at the East-West Gathering in 1962. And the day that when Baba had individual groups come and be with him. And this day with the group, the Myrtle Beach group. And even though we were living in New York at the time, we came with Elizabeth and Kitty and Ruth and Margaret. So we sat, we were in that group. But when we arrived that day, the girls, Monty and Mara, immediately pulled me back inside their bedroom. In other words, I never went in. I didn't immediately go in to be with Baba. They pulled me back there and they said, "We want to dress you in a sari." So of course I was thrilled, and so they dressed me all up in beautiful sari, yellow voile with a beautiful yellow with a very vivid blue top, and they put makeup on, which I loved, because I never got to wear makeup at that point. So, but it was just menthol kind, you know the menthol that they have in India, where they put it in your eye, but it makes your eyelashes look so beautiful. I mean, long and beautiful. But it hurt, it's very how do you say, burning. This is for the girls in the audience. You like to hear these things. So I love the way I look after that. And they put a little red dot on my forehead. And then they pushed me in to see Baba. Well, Baba stops everything. Baba. And Baba looks at me. And he turned to the group and he says, "Wendy is very beautiful, yes?" And of course they all had to agree. Can you imagine saying no? So Baba says, and then he says, "Now we're sitting in a semicircle." And Baba says, "Sit." So I sit on the edge of the circle, and Baba is drawing people out about their lives. Baba's saying, "How's your health? How's your health? Are you happy? Are you happy in your work? Have you eaten today? Are you hungry?" Very simple gestures. When he discoursed, it wasn't simple. I never could follow it anyway. But these questions are always asking about our health. Always. The first question, I found that so fascinating. Thinking about it later, Baba would always ask about your health first. And when I think about that, I realized that I felt Baba was saying, do your best to take care of your health. Do your part. And if you're still sick, okay, that's meant to be. But if you have to do your part, and of course I have to work on that myself. I'm just saying that I'm so interested in that Baba did always begin the day with, "How are you? Did you sleep well? Yeah, did you sleep well?" So all of a sudden, Baba's asking these kind of questions, and all of a sudden Baba points at me, and he says, "Who do you love more?" Erich is there. No, Mani, sorry, Mani. "Who do you love more, Baba or Mommy?" Can you imagine? Now, at that very moment, of course, Baba knew. I was looking at my mother to see if she liked my sari, how I looked. And that's when Baba asked the questions. So, of course, I'm thinking of how I look. So I went, "Ma," and then went, "Oh, no, Baba, you, Baba." Baba smiled like this. So it was a light moment, but later, looking back, I thought about that, and I thought that it was Baba's way, for me, it was Baba's way of reminding me or telling me that to always keep him first in my mind, and to not let relationships or, of course, appearances, but relationships, like with your mother, with anyone, distract you from him. It's very easy to do that. So I took that as a good lesson later on in life. So he goes on asking questions, drawing people out. "How's the baby? Is Baba sign for baby?" No, wait a minute. Baby. How's the baby? Do you remember? Now, I didn't mean to get into 62, but there is a connection I'll come back to. But, Margaret Bunty Kelly, one of Baba's dancers, had just had a baby 3 months before and left the baby to come be with Baba. And she was worried. She was really, the baby it's Margaret Bernstein. That was her baby. And the baby was 3 months. And Baba says to her, "Are you worrying?" Baba signed for worry. "Are you worrying about the baby?" And she said, "Yes, Baba." And Baba said, "If you worry, then I won't. So don't worry. Let me worry about the baby." This Baba's sign. This is the real sign for worry. Don't you love it? The mind going. This, for the public, this was "Don't worry, be happy." But in conversation, this was "Don't worry, be happy." So, okay, so all of a sudden, Baba turns to me very directly and looks straight at me, points at me, and says, and it is Erich, by the way. Erich says, Baba says, keep cheerful in my love. And I thought, all right, I heard that, but I didn't know what it meant. I was 11 years old. I didn't know what that meant. So you can imagine I've spent years thinking about that. What does it mean to be cheerful? And how does one go about doing that? And I feel like what I've come to feel is that it's about developing an inner attitude of cheerfulness, to not allowing ourselves to be brought down by what he brings up. But to me, being cheerful is an act of trust, because it means that we're trusting Baba, that he knows that everything that happens is for the best. And to trust that, it's a real leap of faith. I mean, for me, to really trust that the plan, how Baba says the film was taken long ago. Now you watch. Oh, so, I just wrote this today, so I'm going to read it. Close with this. I feel that to be truly cheerful is an act of trust, because it means we have to trust Baba completely. Trust that everything that happens is for the best. Baba wants us to love him, and loving him means trusting him and letting go of thinking that we're in control. He wants us to be childlike, not childish. Think of Mani and Kitty and Mara, how childlike they were. When I think about being a child with Baba, I always remember how natural it was to be with him. And it was the most natural thing in the world to trust him completely. It is natural for a child to place their trust in their mother and father. How blessed we are that Baba is our mother and father. You are. What a treat for me. Thank you.